Welcome to another edition of the Gospel Light Radio Show. Uh, Tonight we're going to deal with the topic of why Christianity matters. And I think this is something very important. It's not often that I get to come on here and share with you good news. A lot of the times I deal with problems that are facing Christianity, problems that are facing the church, and how we as Christians can respond to those problems. But this time, we have some good news that I'd like to share with you. Something that I can bring to you, that hopefully you can bring to your friends who are doubting their faith in God or who have lost their faith in God, and show them why what we do and what we believe is important. So, in a recent interview, famous atheist Richard Dawkins says that he considers himself to be a cultural Christian. Uh, this is interesting because if you know who Dawkins is the author of the book The God Delusion, among various others, where he has made his career, made his popularity out of attacking religion as a whole, and specifically the God of the Bible that we believe in. Um, And so he has made this case over the years that religion is harmful to people, and that specifically the Christianity is a problem that needs to be addressed. So it's interesting to see that now, after all of these years, he still considers himself, or is beginning to consider himself, a cultural Christian. That the idea that the people around him remain faithful Christians, or remain faithful to the ideas of Christianity, is important to him, uh, and that signifies several things that we as Christians need to understand, and need to be able to express and be able to share with people who are struggling in this area. Now, we all know that the influence of Christianity specifically has been falling over the last few years in this country. Um, a recent Gallup poll says that about 75% of Americans agree that the influence of Christianity has dropped in recent years. Um, we have seen that since from 1950, when Christianity was about 70% of the population, it is dropped down to, or sorry, about 85% of the population was Christian in 1970. Today, that number is around 70%, 68% to be exact. The number of people who claim no religion has risen in the last few years to nearly 22% of the population. So we have this this situation where we see that Christianity is falling, and non-religion, random religion, or no religion at all, is on the rise. And that's in America. In Britain, where Richard Dawkins is based, things are even worse than that. So why is Richard Dawkins now saying that he is concerned about this movement away from Christianity? And I think that is easily for us to understand by looking at what he is saying, that when you remove Christianity from the cultural sphere, you are not left with nothing. uh, I think that there's an idea in the heads of atheists and non-religious people that if you got rid of religion, got rid of these uh, these old texts and these old ways of doing things, that it would usher in some kind of enlightenment, that scientific progress and rationality and um, you know just the truth as they see it is being somehow held back by superstition and uh, you know these rigid religious standards that keep people from being their absolute freest selves, and that if you were to remove religion from the culture sphere, if you remove the influence of religion from culture, you would see progress, human progress, in a way that we haven't previously seen before. And in reality, that's not exactly what happens, and we are seeing that in real time, not only here but around the world. Uh, when you take away Christianity uh, and leave people to their own devices, you end up with a couple of different things that cause you major problems for a society. Uh, the first thing that you lose is a sense of objective morality, and so there's a an old argument that Christians tend to make, which is a bad argument. I'm not telling you to make this argument. When they approach somebody who's an atheist and they say, well, if you're an atheist, what stops you from doing XYZ bad thing? Um, and of course, the atheist is going to turn this poorly framed question around and say, nothing is stopping me from doing it. I just choose not to. And the fact that you are somehow stopped from doing this only because you believe in some imaginary God you can't see is a problem. And it makes their sense of morality seem like it's higher and superior to yours. The question isn't whether or not that person would personally do something. The question is, okay, if you remove the concept of God, the concept of spirituality, the concept that there's something beyond humanity from the equation, where do you even get the concepts of right and wrong? Where do those things come from? How do you determine those things? Do those things even have meaning in a society without God? Because if you're left just with humanity, then your sense of what is right and wrong, or the things that you should and should not do, are simply your opinion at the time, and your opinion is equal to somebody else's opinion. So yes, you may not think that doing X, Y, Z bad thing is something that is worth doing, something that is good to do. But what about your neighbor? If your neighbor doesn't agree, are you equally matched in that disagreement? Who wins that argument? If I don't think that I should be murdered, but my neighbor thinks that I should be, who wins that scenario? And who is going to tell them that he is wrong? Well, okay, you got to take it away from personal things and you bring it back up to the level of society. Society gets to decide what is right and wrong. But that brings its own whole other set of problems. So a thing that you know atheists like to bash Christians over the head with and attack us for is the concept of slavery. The Bible talks about slavery. It does not make a value judgment on slavery. It doesn't say that slavery is evil and a thing that needs to be eradicated. It doesn't wholeheartedly endorse it like the atheists claim that they do. It treats slavery as a fact of life. It's a thing that exists, and it tells Christians and the Jews before them how to navigate in a world in which slavery exists. And I know that's a controversial statement. I'm not here to argue or debate that particular point today. We'll deal with that I have dealt with it before, and we can deal with it another time. But it's a thing that's in the Bible. It's a thing that the Bible addresses and talks about, and atheists will gladly say that if God is so good, if this whole objective morality Christianity thing that you're talking about is so good, why doesn't God say something? Why doesn't God do something about this thing that we all agree is evil? But the question is not that we agree that it's evil. We agree that it is evil now. At the time, uh, society as a whole did not agree that it was evil. In fact, society as a whole accepted it as the normal thing. So it was not out of the norm for the Bible to treat slavery as a thing that is normal. It would have been out of the norm for somebody to say that, hey, this is a problem that we should not do this. That would have been out of the norm. In fact, even in this country, 100 years ago, somebody pulling up on the street and lynching a person that looks like me wouldn't have been a big deal in this country, especially here in Texas where I live now. That's just 100 years ago. That would that have been the moral choice? That person doesn't disagree that it's wrong, or doesn't agree that it's wrong. The society that they live in, the people around them wouldn't have batted an eye. Yeah, at that time there might have been a few people who would have objected. Certainly, people who looked like me would have objected, but what do they care? They're the minority. They don't matter in this situation because if morality is decided by society, society obviously doesn't mean everybody has to agree. It just the culture and the culture of this region of the country 100 years ago, not a problem. At least not big enough a problem to do anything about it. Luckily for me, uh, we've come a long way in 100 years. But the fact is, 100 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be having a completely different conversation. So there has to be, if you can't trust the individual and you can't trust the society to decide what is good or evil, there has to be something beyond society that gets to decide what is good and evil, what is moral and just, and what is immoral and unjust. It's got to be something beyond us in order for it to make a difference. Otherwise, it's just the people at the time decide one thing, and then the people at another time can decide another thing, and it's perfectly okay. For the atheist, there is no argument against that. So it's kind of ridiculous to go back into history and say, oh, we need to change the way that we look at these people back then and how they did things. At the time, what they were doing was perfectly in line with society, and if society is what decides what is moral and what is good, then how can we judge them and say that those people did anything wrong if that's the way the society was? I mean, I can even go even further back than that. And I can make this point as extreme as you want to make it, right? If we're talking about, again, another thing that atheists like to say about Christianity is that all of the world's evils, all of the world's violence, you know is caused by religion and clashes between religions. And again, up to the 20th century, you might have had a point there. Uh, I would have still argued with you on that, but there's a case to be made. But once we get to the 20th century, we see the rise of dictators who are not only not religious, they're completely anti-religious, and they commit atrocities that put all of those crusades and con- conquistadors and colonizers to shame. The numbers that they put up are absolutely astronomical. And in the majority of cases, they were doing those things to their own people, as opposed to people that didn't look like them or didn't think like them. So it's not about religion, it's about society, culture, it's about who is in power. And again, we can say from an outside perspective that those things are wrong. That should not have happened. That those were atrocities. We describe them as atrocities. But if there's no God, there's no objective reality. If the society gets to decide, then how, on what basis do we declare those things to be atrocities? Just because we disagree with what they were doing at this time, but at that time, that was the moral choice because the society was saying that. So you lose the ability to make moral judgments uh, when you take away an independent arbiter of what is right and wrong. You take away an independent standard of what is good and evil. If you leave it up to societies this is to decide what is good and evil, then societies can break in a lot of different ways. Um, and some of them are not going to be the way that you want them to. So it matters that there is an objective standard for people to hold themselves up to and say, is my behavior in line with this objective standard, or is somebody else's behavior in line with this objective standard, and therefore we can make value judgments on whether or not their behavior is something that we should have a problem with. But furthermore, we that the standard that you're using also matters. It's not it doesn't matter that you just have an objective standard. It matters what that objective standard is. If you have to live next door to someone, would you rather live next door to somebody who has an objective standard that says love your enemies, or somebody who has an objective standard that says infidels, you can do whatever you want to do? Would you rather live next door to somebody who says, if at all possible, as long as it depends on you, live peaceable with all men, or the other side, somebody who says that, if you don't look like me, if you aren't in my tribe, you don't matter to me. It's only the people that are believers the way that I believe that I have to treat as human beings. Everybody else, I can do whatever to. It matters. And so not only is and the reason why I'm bringing this up, and the reason why Richard Dawkins was asked this question, is because he is dealing with not only the declining influence of Christianity in this society in Britain, but the rising influence of Islam, and not American, everybody's cool Islam, pretty radical fundamentalist Islam uh, that doesn't consider British culture to be a thing to be valued. This is what he is saying. This is what he is responding to. This is why he is saying that Christianity, losing Christianity, is a problem for his home country. Of course, again, he's ignoring the fact that he's contributed to this over the many years, and with all of his writings and his books, and he is the thought leader for all of these people who have rejected religion in the past 20 years. So he has himself to blame for at least some of it. Um, but he's starting to see that this is a problem. And attacking Christianity the way that he has, he's left the door open for other things to come in. And whether it is the idea of no religion, no faith, no objective standards, or the idea of a different objective standard, both of those are leading to problems that he wasn't prepared to deal with. And I don't think society as a whole is prepared to deal with. The other thing we lose when we remove Christianity from the picture is hope, purpose, whatever you want to call that. That feeling that there is a point to all of this. Um, there's an old quote that people like to use in inspirational circles that there are two lives that you lead. The first begins the day that you are born. The second begins the day that you figure out why. And the problem with atheism, the problem with removing Christianity from the public sphere, is that the second part, the why, doesn't exist. I mean, even as Christians, we have a hard time figuring out the why part. Like we know that we were created in God's image. We know that God loves us. We know that we have been put here to do a good work and bring people to Christ. But we still struggle with, okay, but how? Like what exactly are we here to do? How exactly do we accomplish this mission that have been given? Is the way that I choose to try to bring this about uh, effective enough? Is it good enough? Does it bring me enough happiness? And does my happiness even matter? Like these are questions that we as Christians struggle with, even knowing that there is a God that loves us and there's a purpose for our existence. The atheist believes that our life, our existence, is a result of a complex chemical reaction that started 20 billion years ago and is going to continue forever until all available usable energy is used up. And everything that you do is just and everything that you think and everything that you are, and the fact that you live at all, is just a result of random chemical reactions that are happening in this petri dish that we call the universe. And there is no ultimate meaning. There is no ultimate reason for anything to happen. There's not even really, you don't even really have choices that you're making. You think that you do. You think that you're doing things of your own free will, but free will is an illusion. It's just random chemicals interacting in the thing that you call your brain. And you are, as chemical reactions happen in the same way. Every time you get certain elements together, they produce a certain result. And it is very deterministic. It always happens the same way. It always gives the same result with the same byproducts. And so everything that you're doing has actually been predetermined, not by somebody who cares enough to chart the course of your life, as the Calvinists might teach, but by the random assortment of chemicals that came together to make the person that you are. And so that random chemical reaction gives you the sense that you are doing things and making choices, but in reality, it's just atoms bumping into each other. And so there's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no ultimate. Uh, Even if they like to market it and spin it and say, well, we've removed the concept of heaven and hell, we've removed all judgment. You are now free to chart your own path to give yourself meaning and purpose. But again, giving yourself meaning and purpose only matters to you, and maybe the people around you, maybe the people that you interact with, they'll care about you. But that means your influence extends, as far as your life extends, and maybe a generation or two after that. But 200 years, 300 years from now, unless you are some major political figure, um, most likely no one's going to remember that you even existed or care. And that is a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, as opposed to Christianity, that says that you have an eternal purpose, that beyond this life, there is an eternal life, there is an eternal destiny, that you mattered to God so much that He gave His Son to die on the cross for you, to redeem you of your sins, and so that you can spend that eternity in His presence. And therefore, the things that we do are leading to that ultimate goal. One of those has at least the possibility of giving somebody something to live for, something to work for. The other, not so much. And the question is, what do you do with that? And once, and again, this is the problem that I have with fatalistic religions like Calvinism that I brought up before. So once you take away the purpose, once you take away the meaning, once you take away the reason for doing things, then you're left with what? I can do, if in the case of Calvinism, I can do anything I want, and I'm still going to reach heaven if that's where I'm destined to go, or I'm still going to reach hell. If that's where I'm destined to go, then there's no point to doing any of the things that I otherwise would do. And atheism is even a worse form of Calvinism, right? Everything is determined, and there isn't a 50-50 chance that I end up somewhere good after this. It's just, it's over. And if nothing matters, I'm going to the same place no matter what I do, then why not do anything I feel like doing? And again, for some people, the things that they feel like doing are things that we might not consider that bad, completely innocuous things. But in other cases, and what we're seeing in our society, uh, if it doesn't matter, then why not do the craziest possible things that I can do? And this is why I hate to call them out, but the Oakland, California, and places like that, we see the crime rate because California decided to reduce the penalties for breaking and entering and stealing to an astronomical level, almost $1,000 of value that you have to steal before anybody will even start to care about it. And what we have seen is an explosion of petty thefts and property damage, to where if you park your car anywhere in San Francisco or Oakland for more than a minute, you're likely to come back with your window smashed and everything that was in the car taken out, stolen. Such to the point where major retailers have basically pulled out of the city, and said we're not going to do it. We can't continue to do business here because everything that we try to keep on the shelves gets stolen. Every customer that tries to come through our drive through, that tries to park in our parking lot, gets robbed. There is no sense of law and order because nothing matters, because there's no consequence to any of this stuff. That's just one city and one policy. Bring that to an entire society. If you tell an entire society that there are no consequences for bad behavior, ultimately, I mean, there are certain things that you do. If you get caught, you're going to get punished for it. But if you aren't going to get caught, if nobody's going to see you, if nobody cares, if there's not a reason not to do it other than the fact that somebody else doesn't like it, and again, that goes back to our first argument. Just because they don't like it, what does that mean to you? If there's no objective morality, there's no consequence, there's no reason for not doing it, there's no ultimate purpose to any of this, what are you going to get? What kind of society are you going to end up with in that situation? Well, Glenn, you're painting the worst possible scenario. I mean, yes, we are talking about the worst possible scenario, but is that not what we're seeing? Is that not what we're observing in cities like San Francisco and Oakland, and again, what Richard Dawkins is being exposed to in London, in Britain? He's seeing very similar things happen over there. The fall of Christianity, the decline of Christianity in his country, the rise of Islam in his country, has gotten to such a point that he, the most famous, prominent atheist that you can probably think of, is now saying that this is a bad thing. This whole moving away from Christianity, it was not a good idea. Something has made him say this. Something has happened that he is observing is making him say this, and he is witnessing the the results of losing the Christian ethos uh, in a society at large, and it doesn't have good results. So if we lose objective morality, we lose all sense of purpose when we move away from religion as a whole, but specifically when we move away from Christianity, because again, the standard that you choose matters. The purpose that you are working towards also matters, because again, if you are dealing with a choice between the ethos that says we need to serve one another, love one another as Christ loved us, and then we achieve the ultimate goal of being with Christ in His presence, versus the other option, which is we need to fight against the infidels, and if you uh, die a martyr, uh, whether you are killed by the infidels in battle, that is the highest honor, and that is uh, the way that you achieve the goal of you know 70 virgins in the afterlife. Um, then you're going to get a different result. You're going to get people who think in a very different way about how to interact with their neighbors, how to conduct themselves in a society. And again, this is not just to slam dunk on Islam. This is the actual real life thing that Richard Dawkins is seeing in Britain right now. This is what he's observing. This is why he is coming out publicly saying that this move away from Christianity, even though he is one of the chief architects of the move away from Christianity, is not a good thing for society as a whole. Now, has Richard Dawkins changed his ideas? Has he repented? Is he about to be baptized into Christ? No. I mean, maybe we hold out hope. We pray that will happen, but it's not likely to happen. It's not what he's saying is going on. He still maintains that he is an atheist, but he's saying that he, being an atheist, would rather that you be a Christian than not. And it's not the highest endorsement, but it is an endorsement of a sort. We'll take it, right? Um, if even an atheist can understand that there is some value, there's some power, there's some goodness in Christianity that doesn't exist in the alternatives, including the alternative that he has chosen for himself, then maybe there's something to this. Maybe, just maybe, it's worth looking at. Maybe it's worth exploring. Maybe it's worth taking the time to understand what Christianity is all about. And maybe, just maybe, if you do that, you'll find that Christianity works for you. That maybe you'll find that having the understanding that there is a God who loves you, a God who's willing to extend himself to you, a God that is willing to forgive you and put you on a path of meaning and purpose and value that you were not on before. It's worth checking out, is it not? The lesson is yours, and hopefully this is something that has encouraged you and something that you can give to other people to encourage them. Keep listening to the Gospel Light Radio Show.